Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The mics are on. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. So there were several figures around the Prophet who mastered the art of the tafsir, the explanation and the interpretation of the Quran, and we mentioned several one during the last two sessions. And then we focused on one of them in particular, and that is Abdullah ibn Abbas. Abdullah ibn Abbas is a man after Imam Ali alayhi salam, is man number one in the tafsir, in the art of tafsir, in the field of tafsir, because he dedicated his entire life to study the Quran. And his first mentor and teacher and trainer was Imam Ali, but also he used to go to other companions of the Prophet to learn from them. He would go and knock at their doors and stand outside so they come out, and he would ask them about one specific verse that they heard it from the Prophet. Because when the Prophet died, he was only 13 years old. When the Prophet died, he was 13 years old. So he didn't have enough chance to listen to the Prophet. So after the Prophet's death, he decided that I have to dedicate my life to study the Quran from those people who were around the Prophet, and they heard the Prophet firsthand. And his first mentor, his first teacher was Imam Ali. Imam Ali bin Abi Talib, who's happened to be his first cousin too. His first cousin. And he was older than him, probably 20 years older than him. And when we read about Ibn Abbas, we realize that he was really keen on learning everything. He was, maybe this is not right to say, but a metaphor. He was obsessed with the Quran, obsessed with learning the Quran. He would never spare any chance if he hears that someone knows something, but to go and knock at his door and try to learn from him. Learn. What do you know about the Quran? What do you know about this particular verse? How did it arrive? When did it arrive? What were the circumstances? What did the Prophet say about its meanings? Did you hear him saying something about it? And he would write that down. This is why he became the scholar. He was, after Imam Ali, he was expert number one in the Quran. And he developed a methodology. He developed a methodology in the interpretation of the Quran. So today we study the methodology of Abdullah ibn Abbas. Of his methodology. Though this methodology is attributed to him, but this is the way, in fact, to understand the Quran. Not just for Abdullah ibn Abbas, but for everyone else, whether during his time or after him or even today. They have to consider these methodologies. These are principles that he himself incorporated in understanding the Quran. For any mufassir, any exegetes today, to interpret the Quran in the right way, they must go through these methodologies. So though he is the founder, but he is not the only one who followed these traditions. But he was the earliest. And now if you go to the books that speak about the interpretation of the Quran and the tafsir, you will find his name is being, frequented in these books. Such as what? One of the earliest books that speaks about the life of the Prophet is what? Sirat ibn Ishaq. Ibn Ishaq was born in Baghdad. Ibn Ishaq was born in Baghdad in 85 Hijri, of course, and he died in Medina in 151 Hijri in Medina. His book is called As-Siyaru wal-Maghazi. As-Siyaru, the tradition and the wars. The traditions and wars. And his full name, Muhammad ibn Ishaq. Muhammad. So, Muhammad ibn Ishaq. This man, when they speak about the Quran and its interpretations, then he brings up the name of Abdullah ibn Abbas. And of course, who succeeded this man, this historian? Who are the earliest one who recorded the life of the Prophet? He was number one. He was the earliest. What is the second earliest? I mentioned the name several times. What's his name? What's his name? Don't look at your papers now, because you won't find it now. You have to go home. Ibn Hisham. Ibn Hisham, whose full name is Abdul Malik ibn Hisham. Abdul Malik. Listen, we have two Abdul Malik ibn Hisham. We have the Caliph Abdul Malik ibn Hisham, the Umayyad Caliph, and we have this historians. So Abdul Malik ibn Hisham al-Basri. Al-Basri, because he's from Basra, and he died 218 Hijri. I didn't put it, but usually they lived up to 65. No, they hardly reached 70. Hardly. So, Abdul Malik ibn Hisham wrote a book called Sirat ibn Hisham. That is the second earliest. The first is Sirat ibn Ishaq, the first. So when you read these books, you find the name of Abdullah ibn Abbas. You find the name as being the interpreter. His name is mentioned there, who gives his opinion on the Quran and his translation and his interpretation of the Quran. So what are his methodologies? Number one, can someone say something here? How does he approach the Quran?
Interpret by using Quran itself.
Exactly. Hamid Agha, exactly. You said it. His first strategy was to understand the Quran from the Quran itself. So translating the Quran by the Quran. Quran by. Sometimes the Quran gives a concept, but this concept is obscure. But later on, maybe the same chapter, maybe other chapters, he will give the answer. So he will go and search the Quran. He will search the Quran for an answer of a question or a concept which is not very clear. So he finds a clarity from the Quran itself. And Imam Ali has a saying. Imam Ali says, Al-Quran yufassiru ba'duhu ba'da. The Holy Quran, it translates itself by itself. Translates itself by itself. This is something which is amazing about this book. That sometimes you read here, in the beginning, let's say something, you don't understand. How can I understand this? This is vague. This is not very clear. This is confusing. Then you're going to find in another page the answer to it. So the Quran complements each other, translates each other, interprets, clarifies each other. So he used this point. Before going to anyone else, he will find the answer in the Quran. Don't go too far. Why do you go too far? Why do you go to others, external elements, when you have the internal one there? In the Arabic literature, we have two types of indications. When I say something formal, I might give an indication. Indication is what? Indication is called? Yeah. Qarina, ahsant. Qarina. How many types of qarina I have? Just put it on the board. Two. One is attached. One is detached. Attached and detached. قرينة متصلة attached. منفصلة detached. And also in the Arabic literature, we have a maxim, a law, that says, للمتكلم, for a speaker has the right to say whatever he wants until he finishes his speech. So before he stops, you can't cut him off and tell him, hey, this is wrong. No, give him some chance. Maybe he wants to mention it. So once he says, I provided my opinion, then you can tell him right or wrong. But before he finishes, you can't. Because sometimes he's using indications somewhere else. And these indications sometimes is connected to the sentence, sometimes is disconnected from the sentence. He will say it somewhere else. And the Quran uses both examples. He uses indications that are connected and indications that are not connected. A clear example of that, very clear example. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. We have sent down the Quran during the night of what?
Power.
Destiny. Not power, destiny. The night of destiny. Where is the night of destiny? Does he say? No, it doesn't say in the same sentence, he doesn't say anything. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ. How would you know what is the value of this night? مَا أَدْرَاكَ لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ خَيْرٌ مِّنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ. This night of destiny is better than 1,000 nights. تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ. The angels with their leader, the Ruh, are going to descend from the Lord. So, but where is Laylatul Qadr? There is no indication. Where is the indication? Is it connected or disconnected? Disconnected. Where do we find it?
No, not Rum. It's the one we read.
Even Surah Al-Rum. Dukhan, not Rum. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةٍ مُبَارَكَةٍ. Blessed night. But it is not saying where. So where do we find it? Second chapter. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. We sent the book in the month of Ramadan. So we understand from this detached and disconnected indication that Laylatul Qadr is also in the month of Ramadan. Because God says we sent the Quran down in Laylatul Qadr, the night of destiny. In another place, God says we sent the Quran in the month of Ramadan. So we find out when you combine these two verses, this is called a detached indication or sign. Sometimes we call it sign, sometimes indication. That the Quran, that Laylatul Qadr, the night of destiny, is one. What month? What month among those 12 months? The month of Ramadan. This is an example. Sometimes there are verses in the Quran that speak in general term. But then we find an indication or a sign which is detached somewhere else, speaks about exceptions. One verse somewhere speaks about the nur and it is generalizes, gives a general law, but somewhere else says, no, listen, this law is not that general. There are some exception to this law. This is umum and takhsis, am and khas, general and specific. Or mutlaq and muqayyad. Sometimes it speaks in open terms, sometimes they restrict. Give me an example of a verse that in the beginning speaks in general term, but then at the end of the verse, it specifies. In the beginning, it says all they have to do, all people have to do this. But then, two sentences, one sentence. After that, it says, but only those. I meant Hajj, Ahsant. وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ. It's the right of God upon mankind that to go to His house. So if we stop here, we think that everybody has to go. But then, muttasila. This is attached, connected. The rest of it, what does it say? مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. Only those who have ability, physical, financial ability. Not all. So you find the answer in the Quran. Another verse in the Quran. وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة. The verse says that people are standing on the day of judgment looking at their Lord. But this is not the exact meaning. Where do we find the exact? People think, some people, some especially Sunnis, they believe that we can see God. Because this is a verse. The verse says people can see God on the day of judgment. ناظرة. They use looking. But where do we find the opposite, that you cannot see God? Several places in the Quran. Number 1, chapter 2, 55, Surah Al-Baqarah. What does it say? It says 255. Let's read it for you. 55. Okay? وَإِذْ قُلْتُمْ, when you said to Moses, Ya Musa, O Moses, لَن نُؤْمِنَ لَكَ, we would not trust you, believe in you, حَتَّى نَرَى اللَّهَ جَهْرًا, until we see God publicly. We need to see Him. What happened to them? فَأَخَذَتْكُمُ الصَّاعِقَةُ وَأَنْتُمْ تَنظُرُونَ. Thunderbolt overtook you while you were standing there as a punishment for saying something inappropriate. You shouldn't have said this. You know that you cannot see God. God does not have a physical being. How can you see something that does not have physical being? You can't. So this is the answer. Somewhere else. Okay? Which is detached. Another place in chapter 7, Surah Al-A'raf. Chapter 7, what verse? Verse 143. 7, 143. What does it say? It says, وَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا وَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ. When Moses came to our appointment, miqat means the appointment, and God spoke to him directly, قَالَ رَبِّ, he said to his Lord, Oh my Lord, please, أَرِنِي أَنظُرُ إِلَيْكَ. Give me this chance. Allow me, help me to see you. أَنظُرُ إِلَيْكَ. See you physically, it means. قال, his Lord said to him, لَن تَرَانِي. لَن تَرَانِي. You would never be able to see me. لَن. So this is qareen also. This is how we understand the Quran. From interpreting the Quran by itself. Ibn Abbas, this was his area. He would find verses that explains other verses. In the Quran, in chapter 40, verse 11. 40, 11. قالوا, some people on the day of judgment, they say to God, رَبَّنَا, O Lord, أَمَتَّنَا اثْنَتَيْنِ وَأَحْيَيْتَنَا اثْنَتَيْنِ. You caused us to die twice, and you caused us to live and be resurrected twice. What does it mean? How do you die twice? We know that we die once, and then we are resurrected. Where is the other death and other resurrection? We know it's one. Yeah? You were going to say something?
No, I'm not sure. Not sleep?
No. Sleep is called minor death, but not the complete death.
Is it the death, the physical death?
Physical death.
When we
Resurrect?
At the end of the time, we will be resurrected?
No. Raj'a? No, not raj'a. Yeah, that was his one. Where is the other? We die, and we are resurrected for the day of judgment. But where are the other?
And then is
The other death and other resurrection, where are they?
everybody again also dies on the day of
Judgment?
The day of judgment?
No,
Yeah.
please, don't make it twice. One is enough.
Has it been birth at some time?
Mm. In 2:28, listen, look at this. 2:28 explains 40:11. This one explains this. Go home and check it out. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:28. When you read it carefully, you see that the clear answer to this one. So the puzzle is solved. What does it say? 2:28. It says, كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ. How do you reject God? When God, وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا. First, you were dead. You didn't have life. Did we have life before we came into this life? So we were dead. What is the meaning of death?
Non-existence.
Exactly. Lifeless person. Non-existence. So you were non-existing. فَأَحْيَاكُمْ وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا فَأَحْيَاكُمْ. He brought you into this life. And then ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ. So this is one life and one death. ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ. He is going to cause you to die. Okay? Sometime soon. And then ثُمَّ يُحْيِيكُمْ. He will resurrect you for the day of judgment. So there are two lives, two resurrections, and two deaths. One is the original death. We were dead. We were not alive. So we came into this life. He gave us from his breath. Okay? So we were dead. And then we will be dead again. So two lives and two resurrections. So this was his first strategy, to understand the Quran through the Quran. This is number one. Are we done with this? Let's go to number two. And this one, we have to use it now, not just him. All the students of Quran, they have to study the Quran from the Quran. They will find the answer in the Quran itself. In the Quran. The second principle that Ibn Abbas advocated, he would take care very much of asbabun nuzul. Number two, occasions of descent. Asbabun nuzul. Why did this verse, when did it arrive, and what circumstances was there? Studying the circumstances is very important. And we have two types of verses in the Quran. One type addresses a specific situation, but does not, Dr. Ali, does not transcend to other situations. So it has been allocated just to this situation. And there are other verses that are not confined. Yes, it came on this occasion, but not only for this occasion. It would transcend to other occasions too, and other events too. Such as what? Give me an example of the second type. That a verse came to address one situation, but it is not confined to it. It will transcend to others too, not just confined to that situation.
Said multiple ones before, like about zakat and
Exactly, the khums.
the khums and, yeah.
Khums in chapter 8, Anfal. mentions khums. About the war booties, when you have a war. So you have to pay 1/5 to God and the Prophet. But then they say it's not only, yes, it came during the wartime, but it is not confined to the wartime. It transcends to any profit that you make, whether it's in the battlefield or in your business, in your company when it is peaceful. Any income you generate, you have to give 1/5. Not only during the war. Though the ayah came, the verse came during the war, but it is not confined to that situation. How do we know? From the hadith. The hadith comes and explains. We know this from the hadith. So he was very keen on studying the occasions of descent. And this is why he used to go and knock at the doors and ask the companions, do you remember how this verse came? Where you were there when this verse came? Did the Prophet say this is for this situation or for other situations too? This is very important in understanding why. Like the hijab. How did the ayah of hijab came? In chapter 24. Surah An-Nur, chapter 24. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. Tell the believing men and women to cast down their eyes. What happened? Did something happen or just Gabriel came and...
Were the Prophet's family or something like that? The wives?
No, not the Prophet. No, has nothing to do with the family. What's happened? There was a story behind it. But though there is a story behind it, but that was a pretext for God to send a verse. He was going to send it anyways. But then God wanted something to happen to prompt that. So people pay attention. Are you with me? So we believe even if that story did not take place, however, God is going to send that anyways. A young Muslim from the Ansar community, the helpers of the Prophet in Medina, he was walking the streets and he looked at a beautiful woman. She was coming and he stayed gazing at her and he was walking and he didn't notice. She was passing and he kept walking until his face hits the wall. And he cuts his face. And he starts bleeding. He says, by God, I am going to go and tell the Prophet. I'm going to be honest with him. So he went to the Prophet. He was bleeding. He said, oh Prophet, this is what happened. I was blown away by her beauty, looking at her. I could not remove my eyes from her until I hit the wall. Here Jibreel came. But does that mean men have to hit the hole every time women in order for women to wear it? No, it doesn't happen. Now they can get in a car accident, yes. And so this is the occasion of descent. It's very important to understand what happened, when it came. And Ibn Abbas says, I know most of the verses when they came during the traveling, the trip, when they came when the Prophet was at home, he was in the street, he was in the mosque, he was visiting someone. All these occasions I know about them. And he took that from Imam Ali. This saying is attributed to Imam Ali alayhi salam. That I know the verse that came during the night, I still remember. The one that came during the day. The one that when the Prophet was riding outside Medina, sometimes he was inside. The one that came in Mecca, the one that came in Medina. So, and Ibn Abbas learned that from Imam Ali alayhi salam. And hence Ibn Abbas, he has an interesting story with Umar, the second caliph. In chapter 66, what's the name of the chapter? prohibition, at-tahrim. God speaks in about two women because it's a dual term. إن تتوبا إلى الله فقد صغت قلوبكما. God is saying to two women that you did something very grave, very terrible. So it's better for you to seek forgiveness from God because this is a sin. And if you choose not to seek forgiveness, then you are committing an act of mutiny against God. And then you're going to be on one side, and God and the Prophet and the angels and the community of the believers, those four are going to be on the other side. So which one do you want to choose? Do you want to be left out alone? Do you want to be against God and His Prophet and the angels and the community of the believers? It's a strong threat. And then God says to them, if you don't stop, I will ask the Prophet to divorce you. Twice in Suyuti and Qurtubi, both of them are Sunni sources. They say Ibn Abbas, he wanted to hear this from someone important. Probably he knows about it. But sometimes you know about something, but you need to hear from other people too. Yes? It happens to us. I know this. I know Hamid is telling me, do this and this and this. But someone else comes, I will go to him to ask him, so I make sure that this is really what I'm doing is right. I consult more than one person. I ask more than one person. So Ibn Abbas, probably he knew the story. He knew the identity of those two women, but he wanted to ask from Umar. And he said, every time I go ask him, I would be scared of him. He might get angry at me. He might yell at me, because this is a very sensitive question. Those two women, controversials. So one day we were going out to Hajj with Umar. From Medina, I was with him. And the caravan stopped in the desert, and Umar wanted to use, relieve himself, go to the, urinate. So when he came back to do wudu, I helped him with the wudu. Wudu is when we wash ourselves before the prayers. So I helped him. I poured the water on his hand. While I was doing that, I said, this is the moment. We are alone and we are getting close. I'm helping him. Let me ask him. I said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Of course, he has to address him as the leader of the commanders. فَقُلْتُ يَا أَمِيرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ مَنِ الْمَرْأَتَانِ. Who are those two wives of the Prophet who are mentioned in this chapter that God threatens them? Umar, of course, Umar is smart. He said, فَقَالَ وَعَجَبًا لَكَ يَا ابْنَ عَبَّاسِ. Wow. Ibn Abbas, you make yourself, you don't know? Huh? You are telling me as if you have not heard this from before, but never mind, I would tell you. Huma Aisha wa Hafsa. Those two wives are Aisha and Hafsa. Aisha was the daughter of Abu Bakr, the first caliph, and Hafsa was the daughter of Umar himself, the second caliph. So he was keen, even if he knows something, but he wants to double check. And he wants to hear it from the other side. Probably those opponents, they believe that those were these two women. But the proponents, they have different idea probably. So he wanted to make sure that I hear it from both sides, both parties. And this is mentioned in Durr al-Manthur, Suyuti, and Tafsir al-Qurtubi. This story is mentioned in the two, Durr al-Manthur, the author is Suyuti, and al-Qurtubi. Tafsir al-Qurtubi. Mizuki, for you I will do it in English. So these are two important books of translation of the Quran. This one is Suyuti, and this is Qurtubi. They mention this story in their book, that he wanted to know the occasion of descent. Number 3, what was his strategy in understanding the Quran? What else comes to your mind? Tell me. Let's see.
Other than Arabic literature, using literature.
This is number 4. But number 3, he would ask and he would accept the stories of the trustworthy, because he was on a fact-finding mission. So number 1 people that he trusted were the family of the Prophet, Ahlul Bayt. Ahlul Bayt are his main source of knowledge. And my friends, because of the political situation that day, the charged political atmosphere against the family of the Prophet, Ibn Abbas served as a vehicle to transfer the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt and Imam Ali to the masses. Because Imam Ali did not have the leisure of direct access to speak to people because of restrictions on him. Because of restrictions by the 3 caliphs. There were restrictions on the family of the Prophet. So Ibn Abbas served as a vehicle. Because Ibn Abbas, he had the visa, 10-year multiple visa. He can go and come. But Imam Ali did not have that visa. The regime did not give him the visa. How much do you know about Islamic history?
I learned when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Imam Ali did not have that free movement. Though, of course, people would come to the mosque and talk to him, but still he was under surveillance. He was under surveillance. Ibn Abbas did not have this problem. Why? Why? Because I mentioned earlier. Why? Because Ibn Abbas was not perceived as a contender for that seat, the seat of the Khilafah. They knew that he's not going to be. But Imam Ali was. So they felt insecure. From Ali's name, they felt insecure. It's like here, sometimes, I don't fear Hamid. Hamid would not be, okay? Or I, Omid Agha. But for instance, if Nadim is a graduate of seminary and he wears turban, I feel insecure. Yeah. Because Hamid and Omid are not going to pose a threat. But Nadim probably. This was the situation. Ibn Abbas, he is very knowledgeable, but they knew that the Prophet never said Ibn Abbas is going to be, caliph one day. So let him speak. Let him prove that he's the best. I don't feel insecure. But my insecurity from Ali, I would not give him a free access. And therefore, Ibn Abbas would first ask the family of the Prophet. They were his main source. And he would, this is how they wrote about him. اعتماده على المأثور. His dependency was, his dependency in translating the Quran was upon what? Ma'thur. What does ma'thur mean? No, the secured narrations. Secured. Secured narrations, ma'thur. Ma'thur means we know that it passed down by the Prophet. This is passed down by the Prophet, we know. Ma'thur. Al-ma'thuru an al-nabi. So we know this is from the Prophet. So he would put his trust in this. His dependency, his i'timad was on this type of narrations, not anyone. He might listen to others, but when he writes something, when he accepts, when he documents, he will put only what is authentic.
Maulana, so did he write books?
Yeah.
Through
No. He wrote. Ibn Abbas was writing, of course. He didn't write a book called Tafsir al-Quran, but he would put it on pieces of paper, and it will be passed down. People will take that from him. Number 4, as Dr. Umid mentioned, number 4, and where we conclude, that he also was an expert and in Arabic literature. A or E, expert
E. No, E is correct.
in Arabic literature. And therefore, he would use the shi'r, poetry. Sometimes some of these verses in the Quran, they were very difficult to understand and unfold the meaning of them. Because Quran, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا, authentically Arabic, with the authentic language of the Arab, with what Arab trusted and they learned, not with any language, weird language. The Quran did not come with a weird language. No, authentic language that has roots. Authentic means it has roots in the Arabic literature. So Ibn Abbas, when he was asked, Ibn Abbas used to go to Hajj every year, from Medina to Mecca. And when he sits in the sacred mosque, Masjid al-Haram, the grand mosque, scholars, non-scholars, people from east, west, they come and they ask him. Because this is Habrul Ummah. We said about him that he's the main scholar in the community. So some of them, they will say, how do you translate this? Based on what? Immediately he recites poetry for them. He had a very sharp memory. He memorized Imam Ali's entire speeches. Every sermon Imam Ali gave, Ibn Abbas memorized it. He was amazing in memorization, the power of memorization. So he memorizes Imam Ali's speeches, sayings. He memorizes thousands probably of poetries. So he will support his argument with a piece of poetry. Piece of poetry from where? From the authentic sources, from those major Arab poets, not anyone. Major Arab poets who are considered the foundations of the Arabic literature. And there are many examples. I'll give you a couple of examples. For instance, in the Quran, in 26:19, one of the beautiful chapters that speaks about the stories of the prophets and messengers of God, and that's called Shu'ara. Ash-Shu'ara. Shu'ara is a beautiful chapter, chapter 26. Speaks about Al-Fulk al-Mashhoon. Al-Fulk, you've read this probably. Al-Fulk al-Mashhoon. Now, Fulk is what?
Falak, the
Fulk.
Space or
rock, the
Ships.
oh, ship.
Ships. What is mashhoon? Mashhoon in today's language is when you charge the phone. Charging, shahan. When you charge it, shahan. When this phone is full, we say mashhoon. It's full of charge. But what does the Quran mean? Charging? So what is mashhoon?
Moving.
Huh? It's the same, same concept. We say full of energy, let's say. When something is filled, it's called mashhoon. This book is filled with examples. This room is filled with scholars. This house is filled with humans, let's say. The mosque is filled. They call mashhoon. They call it mashhoon. And he brings an evidence from Arabic poetry. The Arabs, when they want to say somewhere is filled, they say mumtali, filled. They say it's mashhoon. So, it's filled. Ships, that is filled. Reference to what? What ship? What cargo? Hamid knows. Hamid, he thinks a little bit, he processes it, he gives me the answer. Which prophet had a ship? Nuh. Nuh, he filled it with animals and creatures, and so it was full house. Full ship. Fulk al-Mashhoon. But he brings that from Shi'r. He brings the evidence from another example, Suratul Jinn. Jinn is 72, my friend. 72. What does Jinn tell Suzuki about Jinn? Mizuki, sorry. Huh? Chapter 72 speaks about Jinn. Yes. What is Jinn?
genie.
Genie. The spirits that you don't see them. Do you believe that in Japan? Do you have?
Yeah. Spirit?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we have. Yeah,
Yeah.
we believe.
They walk. They are among us, but we don't see them. Do you believe in that?
Yes.
Okay.
They're different than the spirits that died or something.
No, not the spirits that they died. No. Not the human spirits that are dead. No.
Ghost or
Yeah. They are invisible creatures. Creatures. They have mind, they have a brain, they have families, they have life. They could be here in the room with us. Don't be afraid tonight when you go to bed. Yeah.
parallel world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Sometimes you hear voices. Just kidding. But they are invisible. They are called jinn. Jinn, J-I-N, yes. Definitely you have in your culture and your, So these are invisible creatures. Okay? They have a whole chapter in the Quran. Chapter 72 speaks about them. Actually, the chapter is named Al-Jinn. The whole chapter. And some of them are believers and some of them are disbelievers. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Just like humans, just like us. The only difference, we don't see them. We are unable to see them. In that chapter, they come and they listen to the prophets and they communicate with the Prophet Muhammad. They were able to communicate with him and they accept. And he explains to them the meaning of Islam, the meaning of God. And then one of the sentences they say, Ta'ala jaddu rabbina. Have you seen this in the Quran? Have you read this in the Quran? وَأَنَّهُ تَعَالَى جَدُّ رَبِّنَا. The Lord is جَدُّ رَبِّنَا. Let me, جَدُّ رَبِّنَا. So what is جَدُّ here? Jad has many meanings. One of them is what?
Grandfather.
Grandfather. Grandfather is Jad. But is God grandfather? Doesn't work with God. So when it comes to God, Ibn Abbas said there is poetry that tells me the meaning of Jad, the other meaning of it. What is the other meaning of Jad? He says, عظمة الله, عظمة ربنا, عظمة. عظمة, which is the greatness of God. The greatness. جد ربنا means the greatness of God. وأنه تعالى جد ربنا ما اتخذ صاحبة ولا ولد. He did not take for himself neither a wife nor children. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. And thank you